Welcome. Today I'm here with two wonderful authors. We have Heather Werner and Barbara Lynn Murphy.
Hi,
Thanks
all.
for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Yes. My name's Jody Zarambi. Some of you might know me by my pen name, Jazzy Mitchell. I'm the moderator today for the question and answer session, sponsored by Launchpoint Press and Desert Palm Press. So today, both of you will read an excerpt from one of your projects, and after the readings, we will spend some time getting to know you both. If you're watching this live, feel free to submit questions and comments on the page where you are watching us. So I'm excited to get started here, and we're going to hear from Heather Werner first. She's going to be reading from her upcoming release, Summit's Shadow, which will be released this year. Before you begin, Heather, why don't you tell us about the book and set up the scene for us?
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'll give you a brief summary of Summit Shadow before we dive in. This is the story of four college roommates reuniting for a girls' trip up Mount Torquette in Alaska. At over 18,000 feet tall, covered in crevasses, steep pitches, and avalanche zones, the number of climbers who disappear on Torquette is staggering, including Tana Walker's family 20 years ago. As Tana and her friends climb, they begin to suspect they're not alone. Footsteps and shadows stalk their every move, and a slew of near-death accidents befall their journey. As their girls' trip morphs into a fight for survival, the four friends must band together or end up as one more batch of souls lost to the hungry mountain. So that's the brief summary where we are jumping in. Our four heroines have spotted another climber up on the mountain. His name is Wyatt, and he is running for his life. And in his haste, he takes a bad fall down the slope, and the four women go to check on him. So let's dive in there. Wyatt attempted to lift himself from the ground, but the climbing rope had snaked its way around his body. Struggling to untangle himself, he moved with a panicked jerkiness, his gloved hands fumbling over the rope's twists. With an irritated huff, he pulled off the gloves and threw them to the ground. Bryn put a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Hey, it's okay. We saw them too. They're scary, but they're not evil. Not even spirits, we think. More like a parallel dimension." "What the hell are you talking about?" he asked, finally freeing himself and tossing the rope to the side. "We need to get out of here, now." No, you don't understand," Bryn explained. "We think we've narrowed it down to Takriak Sut. In layman's terms, they're shadow people. They don't actually mean us any harm." A bellowing roar cut across their chatter, their heads turning simultaneously to the rocks above. Blending seamlessly into the brown, crumbly stone, a hulking mass lumbered toward the edge of the Inukshuk rocks. Tana's stomach dropped at the sight. Was it the Takriak Sut? Could they do more than peek across the barrier? Were they moving rocks right before her eyes? But as it moved beyond the boundary of the rocks, she realized this had nothing to do with the paranormal. She was staring straight into the face of an enormous grizzly. "Oh shit," Bryn said, echoing Wyatt. "Why is it up this high?" "She has a cub," Wyatt said. "I swear I didn't know. I only saw the mother at first, down lower on the trail. I had a leftover hot dog, so I threw it to her. You don't have to tell me I know it was stupid, even without the cub. She's been chasing me since camp." "Everyone on your feet," Kala said. "Don't make any sudden movements. Tana, you're gonna lead us out of here, okay? Bryn, reach into my top pocket, nice and slow, and pull out the gun." She angled her back to Bryn, never taking her eyes off the grizzly. "Please don't try to shoot it," Bryn pleaded. "It's too far away, and if you miss, you'll just piss it off. Trust me, I won't miss." Misty's words dripped with sarcasm. "Did you forget we're in an avalanche zone? You think maybe a gunshot isn't the greatest idea?" Tana's brain, overloaded with adrenaline, struggled to remember what to do when faced with a grizzly. Stand tall, make a lot of noise, and hold their ground? No, that was for black bears. "I think we're supposed to play dead," she said. The bear sniffed the air, then let out another terrible roar. Its lips pulled back to reveal a row of massive teeth. And then it charged. "Good luck with that," Wyatt said, and took off running. "Tana, go!" Misty screamed, giving her a rough shove after Wyatt. Tana stumbled to her feet, the overloaded pack making her footing unstable. The slope was so steep that Wyatt was cutting a diagonal across the trail, rather than charging straight down. Figuring there was strength in numbers, or at least a smaller chance of being the one who got mauled, Tana ran after him, slamming her heels into the ice to try and maintain some type of footing. Though Wyatt had a head start and the benefit of longer legs, the fear of another fall seemed to have scared him from moving too quickly, and Tana was easily closing the gap between them. The grizzly was taking no chances either. Instead of dropping onto the steep trail and chasing the tail end of their line, it raced laterally, 20 feet above the rope team. Within 10 seconds, it had passed Misty, then Bryn and Calla, until it loomed directly above Tana. Terrified to turn her head, and yet somehow unable to resist, Tana found herself gazing directly at the beast, all muscles and fur and slobbering breaths. The bear's head alone was larger than her torso, its paws wide as tree trunks, pounding against the earth. She forced her legs to keep pumping, though she could no longer think of a good reason why. The bear had outrun them. If it wanted to start picking them off, there was nothing left to stop it. Why didn't we just play dead? And yet, it seemed the grizzly only had eyes for Wyatt, drawn to his bright parka like a beacon. It let out another ear-shattering roar, charging past Tana until it was directly above his head. Tana's legs went weak with relief. She wasn't proud to admit it, but if it was going to tear anyone to shreds, she'd prefer it not be her. Slowing her pace, she let the bear and Wyatt continue ahead. She no longer trusted her wobbly legs to hold her upright. She must have been even more terrified than she imagined because her knees were buckling, barely keeping her from sinking to the ground. "Oh, fuck," came a voice from behind, and the sudden realization drained the blood from Tana's face. The problem wasn't her legs. It was the ground beneath them. The snow and ice were giving way, dissolving down the steep slope. The world dropped into slow motion. She heard screams behind her, felt the rope tugging her waist. Wyatt dropped to the ground, his feet pulled out from under him by the shifting snow. The grizzly struggled to maintain its footing, but as the crust of ice beneath it gave way, it slid down the slope, bellowing as it tumbled after Wyatt. Tana spun back the way she had come, now realizing that in their panic, they had crossed to the left side of the trail, that perfectly angled slope that was waiting for any excuse to release an avalanche. And a massive, lumbering bear was as good a catalyst as any. Misty streaked across the trail, probably the fastest Tana had ever seen her move, Bryn close behind, the rope bunching at their feet as they fought to escape the collapsing snow. Calla raced after them, but the rope between her and Tana was pulled taut, Tana struggling to gain footing as the ground beneath her gave way. Her stomach sank at the realization that she wasn't going to make it. Time slowed to a crawl as she stared at her friends' retreating backs. They still had a chance. How could she possibly take that away from them out of a pathetic, desperate grasp at survival? They had families, dreams, ambitions. What did Tana have to live for? A wave of hopeless defeat crashed over her as she realized there was no real choice to be made. Her hand, which no longer even felt like part of her body, reached for the carabiner at her waist. With her other, she pulled on the rope to give herself some slack. Her fingers fumbled over the locking mechanism, struggling to twist it open as it vibrated with each pounding footstep. Finally, just as she was about to give it up as hopeless, the lock spun free. With a quick flick of her thumb, she unclipped the carabiner, releasing herself from the safety line. Her last view was of Calla, still running for her life, not yet aware of the change in pressure on the rope. She prayed they'd make it, that this one last gesture wasn't all for nothing. Then the world went white. The end.
Oh my God, what a scene. Oh, Tana, what were you doing being a hero like that? How could you do that? And there's so much more in this book, so many more adventures that your readers are just going to love. Looking forward to having this published. Heather, thanks for being here today to read that for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yes, our pleasure, believe me. So now we're going to hear from Barbara Lynn Murphy, and she's going to read from When It's True, which was a 2023 Lesfic Bard Award for fiction. So congratulations on that, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And before you begin reading, please tell us what the story is about and set up the scene.
All right. So When It's True centers around 4 women and their relationships with each other. There's Beth and Kelly, who are a solid, happily married couple. Paige is Kelly's little sister. She's visiting for Christmas. And there's Jackie. Jackie is Beth's friend, but she's also her ex-girlfriend. And she's made an unexpected visit with some questionable motives, and that's caused some tension in the household. Jackie has a long history of being a womanizer, and Kelly does not want her around Paige. She's protective of Paige, and Paige has had some tough times in her past. For this scene, the story is mostly told in the first person from Beth's point of view, but the first section that I'm going to read is in third person because Paige and Jackie are out for a walk with the dogs. And then the next section, when Jackie and Paige return to the house, I go back to the first person from Beth's point of view. So in this scene, Paige and Jackie are out for a walk around the neighborhood. It's Christmas time with the dogs, and they're getting to know each other. Paige and Jackie slowly made their way around the neighborhood, letting Jake and Oliver sniff every blade of grass along the way. After some small talk about the weather, Jackie turned to more interesting conversation. Thanks for coming with me. I needed a break. I love your sister and Beth, but damn, sometimes it's hard to be around them. They are the poster children for the perfect relationship. I know, but it's not all perfect. They work at it a lot. I usually talk to my sister about once a week, and I can tell when they're going through a rough patch. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And when it does, neither of them lets it fester. No conversation is off limits, and I admire them for their honesty. If I'm lucky, maybe someday I'll get the chance to have what they have again. Jackie slowed her pace and looked at Paige. Again? Paige looked away, realizing she had inadvertently opened the door to a topic that was not one she wanted to revisit. Jackie picked up on her hesitancy and immediately backtracked. Hey, sorry, I wasn't trying to pry. I can tell by the look on your face you'd rather avoid whatever memory just flashed in front of your eyes. Jackie resumed her walking pace, letting Paige know she wasn't waiting for any further response on the subject. But Paige stood stock still on the sidewalk, her gaze focused toward the streetlight, although it was evident her mind was elsewhere. Jackie walked back towards Paige. Hey, are you okay? If you want to talk about it, I've been told I'm a good listener. No, but thanks, though. I just got lost in a memory for a second. I'm back now. She gently tugged on Jake's leash to tear him away from whatever scent he was focusing on in the bushes. Anyway, as I was saying, someday I want to grow up and be just like my sister. Yeah, she's probably a pretty good choice for your role model. But then again, your sister doesn't really like me, so it keeps me from getting to know her as much as I'd like. So what's the deal? Why doesn't she like you? Is it because you used to date Beth? Paige asked, stopping again to wait for Jake to take care of his important business. Jackie made her way across the street to a neighborhood children's playground. She tied Oliver's leash to a tree and sat down on one end of the seesaw, waiting for Paige to catch up. No, it's not really about Beth. That probably doesn't help the relationship, but that's not the root of the problem. To be fair, I've managed to tarnish my relationship with her, not to mention a few other people, by my own actions. Let's just say I haven't been, she raised her hands to demonstrate air quotes, the best version of me that I could be up to this point in my life. I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet, not by a long shot. Paige attached Jake's leash to the tree next to Oliver and planted herself on the other end of the seesaw, balancing it to center. They teetered and tottered without giving it much thought, since that's what one does when seated on a seesaw. That's a rather vague assessment. Is that your way of getting me to mind my own business, or would you care to elaborate? We'll freeze to death by the time we cover that subject in detail. There's a lot there. I was saving you from a long conversation in the cold. Well, first of all, I live in New York, and this is not cold. You Southerners have no tolerance for anything below 50 degrees. It's downright balmy out here. Secondly, I'm a good listener, so I'm returning the favor and offering an ear to chew on. Jackie smiled. Well, the old me would make a flirtatious joke about my desire to nibble on your ear. The new me is trying to learn not to say those things out loud. Paige immediately blushed, smiled, and lowered her head, unsure how to respond to the remark. Jackie stopped the seesaw and smiled back, trying to decide where to go with this conversation. I'm sorry. Now you see why your sister doesn't like me, she said. My sister is overprotective of me. I think I'm old enough to take care of myself when it comes to some flirty banter. Yeah, but the problem is she knows that I don't stop at the banter. To say that I've had my share of dalliances that start with banter and end up in bed would be the understatement of the decade. Well, were they all consensual dalliances? Of course, I may sleep around, but I do have some principles. No means no, and if a woman doesn't want me, then I wish her well and move on. So then what's my sister's objection? On more than one occasion, including in my relationship with Beth, I have failed the monogamy test. I always think I want to be faithful and stay with just one woman for a while, but inevitably my eye wanders and I sabotage it. I've lectured myself 100 times to avoid anything that resembles a relationship, but there's part of me that really wants that. So I think I can commit. So far, I've never been able to do it. I always end up cheating, and that's why your sister doesn't want me anywhere near you. Paige resumed the teetering and smiled. Oh, I get it. She thinks I'm going to fall hopelessly in love with you, only to have you dump me after the first roll in the hay. Well, I'm not sure that's her hypothesis, and yours to some extent assumes that A, I'm going to want to sleep with you, B, that I'm going to fall in love with you, C, that you're going to dump me, and D, that I'll be devastated if you do. That's a lot of assumptions, don't you think? My sister still thinks I'm the fragile 18-year-old who fell apart from her first broken heart. A lot of years have passed since I was that person. For the record, I never assumed you'd want to sleep with me, Jackie said sheepishly. I'm not quite that arrogant. Close, but not quite. I didn't think you were. I'm just giving you a hard time. You kind of set yourself up for that. Paige smiled as she abruptly exited the seesaw, causing Jackie to drop to the ground with a resounding thud. Damn, your sister does not need to protect you. You've got that covered all by yourself. Consider me appropriately put in my place, literally and figuratively. Jackie faked an injury to her heart by putting both hands on the left side of her chest while she playfully rolled off the seesaw and onto the sand. Paige walked over to her on the ground and lent her hand to help her up. She pulled her with more effort than was required, which caused Jackie to spring up like a jack-in-the-box and come to a halt within inches of Paige's face. They locked eyes for a second more than necessary before Paige stepped away and walked over to untie Oliver and Jake's leashes from the tree. She handed Oliver's leash to Jackie after she brushed the sand off of her Levi's, and they made their way back to the house without any further conversation. Chapter 7. Kelly and I had long finished our rendezvous on the sofa when I finally decided to express concern that Paige and Jackie had not yet returned from their walk. I didn't want Kelly to jump to conclusions, although I was pretty sure that in her head she already had them rolling around in a bush behind a bush in the park while Jackie had her way with Paige. So it's been an hour. Should we send out a search party? Kelly took a deep breath before answering, confirming she was thinking exactly what I was thinking. I knew Jackie couldn't keep her promise. Now, you don't know for sure that anything is happening. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt until we have reason to throw her out. Maybe they're just talking. Maybe Jake and Ollie are being stubborn. Kelly got up from the couch and went into the kitchen in a wordless, I have nothing nice to say, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut gesture. I heard the pantry door open and the package of Oreos being opened. Kelly doesn't stress eat often, but when she does, Oreos are always the go-to cookie. I silently hoped Jackie was prepared for the hornet's nest she would walk into when they got home. And right on cue, I heard the front door open as soon as the first cookie went into Kelly's mouth. She calmly finished chewing, took a sip of her tea, and met them in the foyer. Kelly took the dog's leashes off and hung them by the door, still not acknowledging Paige and Jackie. They seemed to sense she was annoyed. In truth, they'd have to be blind not to sense it. So they started making small talk about wandering the neighborhood to see everyone's Christmas lights. Kelly was not buying it and made her feelings known. Hey, Jackie, you've got sand all over the back of your pants. Did you guys do it right in front of the jungle gym? Jackie was about to respond when Paige stopped her. Kel, don't be ridiculous. You really think we were having sex, do you? The sand is from the seesaw. I dumped Jackie to the ground when I got off of it. Believe me, if we were having sex, it would not be in the sand. I've done it. It's impossible to get sand out of those delicate lady parts, and then it chafes and causes a rash. What a mess. It's just not worth it. Jackie stood by, holding in a laugh, knowing that if she cracked up at that moment, there would indeed be hell to pay. If I'm honest, I was torn between laughing and golf clapping at Paige for saying the perfect thing to pull the rug out from under Kelly's argument. She knew exactly how to diffuse her sister's anger and anxiety. I could see the air escaping from her lungs. And then, entirely unexpectedly, Kelly smiled at both of them. Not even a fake smile. Nope, this was an honest to goodness, I concede, you've won this round grin. I wanted to bow to Paige as the goddess of conflict diffusion and avoidance. With that, Kelly put her arms around her sister, gave her a hug and a kiss, and said goodnight. Well done, Paige Gallagher. Well done.
That was great. That was so funny too. I really liked that Jackie and Paige, they had that conversation. So it cleared the air of everything. And then the way they dealt with Kelly and her assumptions, they just, as you said, pulled the rug right out from under her. She had nowhere to go on that. And that is a great way of getting us to know your characters and how they interact with each other. Thank you for sharing that with us today, Barbara.
Thank you.
Great. All right, now we get to go into the question and answer session. I'm so excited to ask you both questions and help us get to know you both. So I'm going to start with the first question, which is to both of you. And Heather, you can answer it first. When did you start writing, and how did you know you wanted to become published?
I've been writing for about 10 years, and my first writing gigs were just freelance, outdoor adventure, travel. So I would go on backpacking trips or cycling trips and then write up something for a magazine. And I write for an outdoor magazine here in California, just reviewing trails. But when I'm out on these adventures, I'm often solo, and that's just a lot of time to be in your head. So just to pass the time for a week-long trip, I would start daydreaming, coming up with stories, just because you get so bored. And I did a 2-month bicycle trip from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, completely alone. You start to go a little bit insane with that much alone time. And I came up with this huge story just to occupy my time. All the characters had a beginning, middle, and end. And when I got to the Pacific Ocean, I said, well, I've got a full story here. Let's actually write it down. And that ended up becoming my first novel. It got picked up and published. And so since then, I actually use all my adventure trips as a way to come up with plots for new stories.
Oh, that's wonderful. And a good way to use your time while you're alone and doing all of your adventures, which I'm sure we'll have a chance to hear more about today too. And Barbara, why don't you tell us, how did you start writing and how did you know that you wanted to become published?
So I'm a little bit of a late bloomer to writing. That is, writing at length. I used to dabble a little bit and write the start of a story, but I could never sort of get from beginning to middle to end in my head. And I thought that I had to have the whole thing mapped out before I could even continue. Little did I know that there are these things known as pantsers, people like me who can just kind of make up the story as you go along. And once I started doing that, which was during COVID, I just started writing and literally making it up as I went along. Then once I figured out that I could do that, I just kept going. And before I knew it, a whole novel had appeared kind of in about 6 weeks.
Wow, I'm jealous. But that's great that you took the plunge on it and that you realized you don't have to have it all mapped out from the beginning to the end. You know, writing can be a journey as you go along, and sometimes you don't even expect where you're going to end up going with your characters. Well, I'm glad you joined. I'm glad you joined the fray. And go ahead.
My wife would ask me, so what's going to happen to this character, that character? I'm like, I don't know. I'll tell you when I get there.
Right. You're just writing down the story they tell you.
Yep, exactly. They're in my head and it's coming out on paper.
Exactly. So for both of you, what part of the work you read from today was the most fun to write? Heather, go ahead.
I loved writing infighting between the 4 women. Not because I want to see the women fighting, but mountaineering has all these little subgroups of people. You have your rich jerks, you have your hippies, you have your dirt bags that do everything on a shoestring budget, the people chasing the summit photo just for an ego boost. And all these little groups can't stand each other. And I have friends in every group, and the snarky things that they will talk about other climbers, just writing it all down as I'm on these trips. And putting that all together was like having all my friends on the page, and they finally got to say all those snarky things they always wanted to say, but directly to the other characters. And I loved showing that side of mountaineering, that it has all these different facets, and putting all those people together.
It sounds like high school, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
How about you, Barbara?
So I love writing just about relationships of all types. And I think what I enjoy writing the most is dialogue. I sort of hear these conversations in my head, and my books are very dialogue driven. You don't find a ton of long passages of just text with no dialogue. And that's the part that I enjoy most, hearing the conversations that these characters are having in my head and then trying to put that into words.
And
that's
dialogue
part of it.
That's great. You know, dialogue is so important and can give the readers so much information about those characters when it's written correctly. And obviously you have done a great job with it because you're winning awards now based on that. Heather, what inspired your idea for the book, and how did you come up with the plot? Because you've said it a little bit about the mountain climbing, the different groups, but how did you come up with that plot for the paranormal aspect of it, in the fantasy part?
So I think a big influence was actually a movie that came out in the 2000s. Do you remember the movie The Descent? About the spelunking? Yeah, that was an amazing movie. It was like kind of a goofy horror movie. It's about a bunch of spelunking women fighting off monsters in a cave. But what made it so special was seeing an action movie that didn't have just one token woman, or something like Charlie's Angels where they have to be cute and sexy. These were like real, rugged, dirty, aggressive women, and they were deeply flawed, but they all came together to, do what they had to do. And as a teenager, I think that was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And it was just mind-blowing. And I wasn't writing back then, but I remember thinking, oh, I wish this existed, but for my sport. And many years later, I was on Mount Everest, and you spend a lot of time just sitting around on Everest. And we decided, let's film a horror movie just for kicks. So I wrote a script, found actors, we filmed the whole thing. And after we had filmed it, I was like, hey, you've got all the pieces. You have that long ago dream of having a mountaineering women's story. And now you've got a ghost story on a mountain. Put it all together and you've got something special here. And so that's where that came from. And I just love horror to begin with. And I wanted to do something that tied what I felt when I saw The Descent into my sport. So hopefully someone interested in mountaineering would read that and be like, hey, this is so cool. It's all women and they're all just doing what they have to do to survive.
Oh, nice. Barbara, tell me, how did you prepare for this book, and how much of your past experiences do you incorporate into your books?
I think there's a little bit of me and my history in everything that I've written so far. Little bits and pieces of my personality are sprinkled about the characters. As far as preparation, as a pantser, there wasn't much. I started with a very small premise of this happily married couple and an ex-girlfriend who was coming to visit, and then it literally just morphed from there as I wrote it. But there's definitely some of me in there, for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And I was thinking about what you said about how you like to write the dialogue and you like the interrelationships and how that plays out. So I can see where kind of being a pantser would work for that. You just go with what the feelings are and keep traveling that path.
Yeah.
So let me ask both of you, what themes and genres and tropes do you like to read? Why? And are there any you love to read but that you won't write? Heather, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I mostly read what I write. I love horror. I love thrillers, lots of action, adventure, blood, guts, and gore. That speaks to me. But I do also read a ton of comedy, and I wish I could write it. like British comedy, like Terry Pratchett or Douglas Adams, that super dry comedy, and then very American comedy like Tina Fey, Chelsea Handler. You have to be so quick and so sharp to write a full book of comedy. And I love to read it, and I wish I could be that good, but that's on a totally different level.
Something to aspire to if you want to follow that path, definitely.
Yeah.
And what I see a lot of writers doing is they're interspersing the comedy and the funny parts and the situational comedy and that sort of thing. And then eventually, you can try and expand on that. So that's a great point that you made about how hard it is, because truthfully, it is hard. And different people think different situations are funny. So, I understand the challenge though. And you like challenges, don't you, Heather? So,
I do.
I know. How about you, Barbara?
So I would agree with the point about comedy. I love to read comedy. I'll read a lot of what I write as well. Just, some good old fashioned romance relationship stories. Those are really what I enjoy, kind of getting to the heart of a character.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to comedy, I try to intersperse a little bit of it in the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's really hard to do. I wish I could be better at it because there are authors out there. KJ, I don't know if you're probably familiar with KJ. She's very good at interspersing comedy in her very heartfelt stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would love to be able to do.
Yeah, I can understand that definitely, because it can break up a really tense scene too and kind of change up the emotion. So I'll be looking for comedy from both of you in the future. All right. So Barbara, why don't you tell me, how are you doing now as opposed to your first book release? Do you feel more confident navigating the publishing process now that you've done it for a couple of books? I can see you laughing already.
I knew nothing. And if Lee from Desert Palm is on, she's probably like, yeah, she knew nothing. So I'm getting a little better at it, hopefully. Now that I kind of know what to expect, I've got a third book that is now going to be about to be in the process. It's being edited as we speak. And I'm feeling a little more comfortable with it. I'm not great at the marketing part. I'm not good at selling myself. So I'm trying that. I'm working on that. And hopefully that'll, just get better with each one. It's tough. It's tough for me. I'm an introvert. I like being behind the keyboard and not in front of it. But I'm working on it.
I can get that. And congratulations that you've written your third book. That's wonderful.
Thanks.
Is that also going to be a standalone or?
It's a standalone. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I would say that there's always more to learn as far as the process anyway. I mean, because things are constantly evolving too. And nowadays we really do need to promote ourselves. It isn't that the publishing house can just go off and do the promoting for you.
Agreed.
So especially these smaller presses, it just we don't have the budget, so we need the help of the authors to also promote everything. So I get that, and it's something that's needed, and you want to get in front of people, which is why we offer these live streams so that we can get you in front of people who can hear you and say, "Yeah, I want to read that book." So good. I'm glad that you're feeling a little more confident with the process, and hopefully that will continue.
Thanks.
So Heather, tell me, you do all these things. How do you even find time to write?
I am really big on having a work-life balance, so it is tough to fit everything in. But my actual day job is a hairstylist. I have a hair salon here in San Jose. And so I try to get most of my writing done there at work. So if someone's color is processing, I try to bang out a few pages or in between clients. And that way, when I go home, I've basically done 2 jobs in one work day. And it mostly works out great. The hard part is the mood switching. So if you're writing this dark, grisly murder and then your client walks in, you have to suck yourself out of that. You're like, oh, hey, Susan, and just completely turn off the murder part of your brain.
Right. No kidding. Right. That could be bad if you don't turn it off. But that's great. And I've heard before, and I've experienced it myself. When you're busy, it seems like you do a better job at using your time to do these other activities. So I can see where if you're at work and then you're writing in between when you have a little bit of time, how that can work. And that can actually be very beneficial and industrious in that sense. So that's a good point for a lot of people because, I hear a lot, I don't have time. Well, when you're busy all the time, though, I think that really can benefit you because you're focused.
Right. You're
on
in
it.
that mode. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely. Well, great. I'm going to ask you both what we call the lightning round. So I'm going to ask questions and I'll have Barbara answer first since you've done this before with me. And then Heather, you'll answer. And we just want quick to get to know you a little bit better. And by the way, we have been getting comments in and Lee's watching, Barbara, just so you know.
I see it. Hi, Lee.
That's a publisher for Desert Palm Press, and she named Barbara's next book, which is A String of Days. So thanks, Lee, for letting us know. Okay, so let's get to the lightning round. So I'm going to ask, I'll lob you some easy questions here. Barbara, tell me first, and then Heather, what's your astrological sign?
Taurus.
Libra.
Okay. Libra. Okay. Tell me, what's your favorite cereal if you eat it?
Oatmeal.
Okay.
It counts.
It does.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
All right. Awesome. Do you prefer a shower or a bath?
Shower.
Okay. Hamburgers or hot dogs?
That's tough. Hamburgers.
Okay.
Hot dog.
Okay. And are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early.
Okay.
Early bird, for sure.
Oh, not me. If you had to choose where to go, would it be the beach or to the mountains?
Beach.
Mountains.
All right. That makes sense. Since you're a mountain climber. So tell me, what would you choose? Being able to speak every language in the world or being able to speak to animals?
Speak to animals.
Ah, man. Yeah, animals would be pretty cool. I'll take that one.
Okay, cool. Do you prefer calling, emailing, or texting someone?
Text.
Text.
All right, we're modern. All right. What's your favorite season?
Spring.
Okay.
Fall.
Okay. So you don't really get that in California, though.
No, it's just always summer here.
Always summer. That's right. Favorite color?
Blue.
Red.
All right. Would you prefer invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility would be fun.
Yeah, introverts, invisibility.
Right? Okay. What was your last Halloween costume?
I think it was a surgeon or like a doctor.
Okay.
Oh my God, I can't even think of the name. I always do hair themes. It was the Sweeney Todd.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Oh, no, wait. Can I change my answer? I remember now.
Absolutely not. No, go ahead.
It was Jake from State Farm.
Oh, were you? That's fun. Okay. Let's see. If you could be transformed into one animal, which animal would you choose?
Probably a dog. I love dogs.
All right.
Yeah, cat or dog. They've got a pretty sweet deal.
I can tell you my puppy has a great life. She's very pampered. I want to come back as my dog. Let's see. We'll do two more. Do you shower at night or in the morning?
Morning.
Okay. And what's your go-to karaoke song?
No, none.
Yeah, I've never done karaoke. Never.
Okay. Well, that's not a good question. Then I have to give you something else. What's your favorite junk food?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Okay.
Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its. Got it. Nice. You guys rocked the lightning round. Good job. So let's see. I wanted to ask you a few more personal questions, and then we're going to round it up for us and get going. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. But let me ask you, first off, and I guess this is kind of like a lightning round, but I'll let you expand a bit. Who's your celebrity crush?
Right now I'm crushing on Sarah Bareilles, because I just saw her, and talent is very attractive to me, and she blew me away. And so I'm definitely crushing on her right now.
Where'd you see her?
I went to the Mothership weekend concert down in Florida at the beginning of May.
Nice. Yeah, I bet it was. How about you, Heather?
I would say it'd be between Angelina Jolie and Ewan McGregor. I like people that do cool stuff outside of their jobs. So she's off trying to save the world, and then he's doing his motorcycling around it. They both seem like really cool people.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, where's your favorite place to write and why?
I write mostly on my couch downstairs because it's comfortable, and usually there's a dog on me, and it's just a comfortable place to write. Sometimes here, which is my home office for work, but mostly on my couch.
Cool. How about you, Heather?
Pretty much at my work at the salon, just because it's convenient, but I would love to have an actual writing nook that's really quiet and private. Maybe down the road.
Cool. So, and one more personal question, I guess you would say, what's your writing environment look like as far as, do you like it to be silent, or do you need background music? Is there certain, snacks or drinks that you set yourself up with? Tell me a little bit about your environment when you're writing.
For me, it's quiet. I usually I have my glass of water with me, and that's about it. And I'm sort of in my head, just not focusing on anything else. Music, as much as I love music, it's distracting to me while I'm writing. So I do not have music on.
No, good to know.
I don't have the TV on. Sometimes I'll have the TV on. I can still write with the TV on. Depends.
Oh. Okay. Heather, how about you?
Yeah, in a perfect world, absolutely no noise. It is distracting, no music. And I'd like to have a strong coffee going, because that seems to get the words out faster.
Nice. You're a coffee drinker. Good job.
Absolutely.
Me too. How about you? You too. Get you going.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we have a couple minutes left. And what I'd like to do is give you both the opportunity to tell us anything you want to tell us about the project you read from today, or upcoming projects, anything like that. So let us know, the title of the book that you want to talk about with us. If it's not out, when you believe it will be out, the type of trope or genre or topic of the book, and the main characters. Give us some description about it. So this is your time to go ahead and give us all that information. Barbara, you can go ahead first.
So I do have a book, as I mentioned, that is going to be coming out, I hope, late fall. We'll see how the editing process goes. It's called A String of Days, and it is a fictional memoir of an older woman who's in her 70s, who has been asked by her niece, who is doing some kind of research paper about the relationships of her life. So she kind of goes back to the beginning of when she was 18-ish years old, and kind of goes through all of the relationships of her life, and loves and losses, and there's a few difficult themes in there. It's definitely not all wine and roses. She has some tough times, and so it's just how she gets from being 18 to being 70-ish years old, and everything in between. And as I said, it's going to come out, I hope, late fall. This will be my third book. I name my books from a lyric in a song. All three of them have come from a song, and A String of Days is a lyric in a 10,000 Maniacs song. So that's where that came from. And since it's a memoir and it talks about the days of her life, I thought it was appropriate.
All right. So A String of Days is that one. And tell us again which book you read from today.
I read from When It's True.
There you go.
Excellent. That's a lyric in an Indigo Girls song.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Heather, why don't you go ahead and give us the information?
Sure. So Summit Shadow is what I read from today, and that should be coming out, Jody, you know more precisely, but I think around Christmas time.
Yep, maybe a little before, depending on the
Okay.
editing process, but we're getting there. I think we'll definitely get it out this year. So I'm very excited.
All right, awesome. And I wanted this to be a climbing story that's accessible to non-climbers. A lot of climbing and adventure stories, they tend to be very bravado and ego-driven, but I wanted to focus on what I think is the best part of climbing, and that's the camaraderie that you build with your teammates when you're in a dangerous situation. And in this case, where it's all women, I wanted to show the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a woman in a man's world, and show what we have to deal with that's a little bit different from our male counterparts, and how having a sisterhood on the mountain is so important, just having other women in your corner. And for romance fans, there is a little bit of romance mixed in. And yeah, I wanted to share my culture, my world with people and make it accessible by using a paranormal thriller as the backdrop to something that's very special to me. So if you have any interest in mountaineering, or if you just like reading about it, I think this would be a great way to dip your toe into our culture and come see what I love to do.
Excellent. Thank you. And Nancy just commented, Heather, it was nice learning a bit about you and look forward to reading your book, Summit Shadow. So,
Oh, thanks, Nancy.
That's my wife, by the way.
Oh, hi, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, I'm sorry to say we've run out of time today. I'd like to thank Heather and Barbara for being with us today. It was lovely to get to know you better and to hear from your works. And I'm sure that many of your readers are excited to read Heather, what you will have published this year, and Barbara, the one you just read from today, as well as what you'll have coming out this year. So a lot of wonderful books to get to. And Barbara, I'll be looking at yours too. And obviously I've read Heather's a few times, and I know that's an awesome book and everyone's going to just eat it up. So very excited for that. So this session was brought to you by Desert Palm Press and Launch Point Press. I'm the publisher for that. We are sister presses and we collaborate to offer these live stream events monthly. And I hope you'll come back and watch it on July 21st when we will have 5 authors reading from the works. And I can even tell you the names of those authors. There will be Sandra DeHelen, Ann Tennell, Kelly Doherty, Tony Draper, and special guests Karen Badger. So until then, I hope that you'll visit the desertpalmpress.com website and the launchpointpress.com site and take a look not only at these 2 wonderful writers and what's coming up, and keep an eye on them, and also take a look at the other authors at those websites. So until then, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.